There was a time when humans looked to the sky not to observe, but to beg. Every disaster had a cause. Every miracle had an author. And every unanswered question could be solved by a single word: gods. Storms were not weather. They were moods. Plagues were not accidents. They were punishments. Victory was not strategy. It was divine favor. But after the wars, after the cities burned, after promises were broken again and again, something changed, not loudly, not all at once, quietly. People began asking a dangerous question, the most dangerous one in mythological history. What if the gods are not listening? And worse, what if they never were? This was not rebellion, it was exhaustion. When belief fails often enough, doubt does not arrive as anger. It arrives as silence. And in that silence, the power of the gods began to fade. Greek gods were not sustained by temples alone. They were sustained by belief. Every prayer strengthened them. Every sacrifice reaffirmed their place in the world. Every story told by firelight kept them present, powerful and real. The gods did not rule because they were distant.
The oracle foretold a
They
time
ruled
of
because
great
they were involved.
trials.
Too involved. They intervened in wars, love, politics, and fate itself. But belief is not permanent. It is a relationship. When humans felt protected, belief grew. When they felt abandoned, belief fractured. After Troy, after generations of suffering justified as divine will, people began to sense a pattern. The gods demanded devotion, but offered no certainty. And slowly reverence turned into routine. Routine turned into doubt. Doubt turned into distance. The gods did not fall in battle. They weakened because fewer people were listening. There was no official moment when people stopped praying. No declaration, no final ritual. Prayers simply became quieter. People still spoke the words, but without conviction. They sacrificed out of habit, not hope. They asked for protection, but prepared for disappointment. When disasters came despite devotion, explanations grew thin. Perhaps the god was distracted. Perhaps the offering was insufficient. Perhaps fate is stronger than prayer. Each excuse saved belief for a moment, but weakened it in the long run. Faith that must constantly justify failure eventually collapses under its own weight. The gods had once been reliable narrators of reality. Now they were explanations of last resort. And when humans began trusting their own judgment more than divine signs, something unprecedented happened. The gods lost their monopoly on meaning. The Olympians still existed in myth. Their names still carried weight. Their temples still stood, but presence matters more than power. A god who no longer intervenes becomes symbolic. A god who no longer answers becomes abstract. Zeus still ruled the skies, but storms no longer felt personal. Athena still represented wisdom, but humans trusted strategy more than prayer. Ares embodied war, but battles were decided by numbers, not rage.
The storm gathers.
The gods remain powerful in theory, but irrelevant in practice. And relevance is the true currency of worship. Without presence, divinity becomes distant.
The cipher reveals a new perspective.
Without interaction,
matches the
gods
text on the
become
tablet.
concepts,
But the symbols
and
contradict that
concepts do not
interpretation.
inspire fear or devotion. They inspire interpretation. As divine authority weakened, something else rose in its place. Thought. Instead of asking which god caused this, people asked, why did this happen? Instead of fearing punishment, they examined consequence. This was not atheism, it was curiosity.
You are the light of the world. A city built
Philosophers
on a hill cannot
began
be hidden.
searching for order without
Let your light
Olympus.
shine before men.
Nature was no longer a battlefield of gods. It was a system. Justice was no longer divine revenge. It was human responsibility. The universe
And
did
so,
not feel
the decree
smaller
is
without
signed and
gods.
sealed.
It
May it
felt
serve
more
our people well.
complex.
Indeed, a momentous decision.
We pledge
And
our support.
complexity does not require worship. It requires understanding. The gods had explained the world emotionally. Humans now tried to explain it rationally.
The signs are clearer
This
now.
shift did not
Yes, the
destroy
portents are upon
mythology.
us. What path shall we
It
choose?
reclassified
Only one
it.
remains.
Once myths were truth, not metaphor, not allegory. Truth. They explain origins, laws, and destiny. They justified kings and
Let the
wars.
light of Olympus guide us.
They shaped morality.
Be grateful.
But
for
when
their
belief
favor.
weakened, myths changed roles. They stopped commanding behavior. They started informing culture. Zeus was no longer a ruler to
Let us
obey.
seal this pact by the will of the people.
He was a character
Let the
to
decree
analyze.
be made binding for all.
Hera was no longer feared. She was understood. Hades was no longer a threat. He was a concept. Myths became stories with meaning, not rules with consequences. And in that
decision is made.
transformation, the
Indeed.
gods lost something essential.
Time has come. Let the
Authority.
preparations begin. I saw a
Stories
sign.
survive belief
The
better
gods
than
have
gods
spoken,
do.
and they demand
When
that we
people
listen
stopped
to the
fearing
wisdom of the
divine
elders.
punishment, they
Our
did not
destiny
stop
awaits.
telling divine tales. They retold them differently. Gods became dramatic figures, flawed, emotional, excessive. Their cruelty was no longer sacred. Their mistakes were no longer justified. Humans began judging the gods. What once inspired obedience now invited criticism. And that reversal changed everything. A God who can be criticized is no longer supreme. A God who can be analyzed is no longer eternal. The Olympians were no longer above humanity. They were mirrors of it. The decline of the gods is strange for one reason. They never resisted. There was no final war between gods and humans. No punishment for disbelief. No apocalypse. Why? Because gods are only powerful where belief exists. You cannot punish disbelief with thunder if no one believes thunder is divine. The gods did not withdraw. They dissolved. Like echoes fading in an empty hall, they lingered briefly, then disappeared. Without gods intervening, the world became quieter, but harsher.
We must secure that northern
No one
flank,
blamed
Dark
Olympus
Soul.
anymore.
It's too exposed.
Responsibility
them.
returned to human
Show me
hands.
where.
Wars were no longer holy. Suffering was no longer justified as fate. Justice was no longer guaranteed by divine balance. Freedom increased. So did guilt. The absence of gods did not bring peace. It brought accountability, and humanity was not prepared for it. Heroes had once stood between gods and mortals. They were bridges, proof that divine favor mattered. But without gods, heroes changed. They were no longer chosen. They were skilled. No longer blessed, just determined. Heroism became effort, not destiny. And something sacred vanished with it. Eventually, the gods survived only as symbols. Zeus became authority. Athena became wisdom. Ares became conflict.
And in the forum,
Aphrodite
our
became
voices
desire.
will be heard. A heavy
They no
burden
longer
rests
ruled the
upon us.
world. They explained parts of the human condition. In losing power, they gained clarity. Something was lost when gods faded, not miracles, not justice, meaning. When suffering had a divine cause, it felt purposeful. Without God, suffering became random. And randomness is harder to endure than cruelty. But something was gained as well: choice, responsibility, moral ownership. Humans no longer live beneath divine judgment. They live beneath their own. And that burden reshaped civilization. Greek mythology did not fail. It completed its role. It taught humans how to personify
The gods
chaos,
favor strength,
desire,
but wisdom guides
fear,
it.
and power, so they could eventually outgrow them. Myths are not lies. They are early truths spoken emotionally. Even without belief, the gods remain relevant because they reveal who we were before we understood ourselves. They are emotional fossils, psychological ancestors. And studying them is studying humanity. The gods did not vanish. They transformed from rulers
The whispers
to
of history are
reflections,
etched in this
from
stone.
powers to parables.
Generations of prayers.
And in
What
that
wisdom remains
transformation, mythology became immortal. This is not the end of the gods. It is the end of their reign.
The assembly is called to order.
From here on, we will return to them, not as
Let us
masters of
discuss the new
fate,
decree.
but as characters shaped by fear, desire, jealousy, and ambition. One by one, we will revisit each god, not to worship them, but to understand them. Because the gods did not create humanity. Humanity created the gods. And in their stories, we find ourselves.